everyone knows each other. They go to the same, making records conferences. They all talk to each other and they help each other. It's more of a community rather than a group of competitors talking to each other. You don't get that vibe that they're trying to sabotage each other. In fact, I've reached out to some of these factories and they were like, oh, yeah, let's get on a call and I'll tell you everything. They were never like, these are trade secrets. We can't tell you certain things because we've perfected it and we don't want you to succeed. It was always, I want you to succeed because this is such a good community and we can help each other. There are plenty of customers.
What's up, everybody? It's Keefy from GhostCultMag.com back once again, and I am pleased to be joined by Yosuke Konishi, I hope I said that correctly, sir, of Nuclear War Now Records and also the brand new formed Helios Press. How are you doing today?
Good. Thanks for having me on.
Pleasure to catch up with you. First and foremost, I know this is kind of a transformative time for your brands the last few years. You used to be, I'm in the Bay Area, and I think you were originally based here for a long time. The East Bay's loss is Austin's gain, as usually the case. It's kind of tough times in every major city right now. I just had another friend relocate to Austin, and she's been raving about the scene there and the culture there. So I know it was a tough go here for you,
Where are you located in the East?
I'm in San Francisco, but I do go to, Oakland a lot for, shows and personal stuff and record shopping and things. But, I know right now nationally, San Francisco and Oakland have bad reputations. I don't think it's as bad as everyone portrays it to be.
It never is, yeah.
Yeah, I moved here from the East Coast 3 years ago. I love it here. I would never leave, actually. And I love where I'm from. Like, I'm one of those guys, I rep hard, like New York City, and I lived in Boston for a long time. I'm sure my whole audience is tired of hearing me extol the virtues of those two places and the music from those places. But I know it was kind of, complicated, but was there a particular reason to transition over to moving out of the city? And was that part and parcel of this new venture?
So Helios Press wasn't even on my mind yet. It was more like all the other stuff that was happening around us. So, I want to first say that I really like the Bay Area and I love the weather, especially, and the landscape and everything else. I have a lot of friends there still. And I lived there from 97 until 2021, kind of jumping across the pond several times. Like I started out on Channing Way on Berkeley, going to university there. And then I moved for my job to South San Francisco. I lived there for a few years. I really got the label started in South San Francisco. It started out in my bedroom in Berkeley, but then after I moved to South San Francisco, that's when it really took off. So my origin story kind of goes back to the Bay Area. So obviously I have fond memories of the Bay Area, but from 97 to 2021, a lot of things changed. So I saw the .com come, and then the first .com bust, and then another, biotech resurgence and .com resurgence, and then I guess the bubble hasn't burst yet on that front, but socioeconomically, the entire region is suffering due to bad management, in my opinion. It's mostly just high rates of crime, high rates of taxation on small businesses. I think the extreme crackdown they had during COVID didn't help at all with small businesses, and especially restaurants. They really got screwed. Like businesses like mine, we could operate kind of behind the scenes because, NWN was just a warehouse in East Oakland. So they didn't really bother us, I don't know if you were here, but you were not here yet, right?
I came in the middle, right in the middle, 2021. So
yeah. So 2020 was a shitty year, mostly for most people. So 2020, the shutdown and just patrolling was pretty severe. It wasn't like they were pulling people over, but there was always this lingering fear that you would get pulled over if you were just out and about, because you weren't supposed to go out so much, right? Only like the so-called essential workers or whatever. And I was still sneaking out, going to my warehouse in East Oakland. I was living in the Oakland Hills at the time with my family, and I would just drive down the hill and hope that there aren't any cops around. I just didn't like this atmosphere that I was living in. That's not to say that we didn't take the virus seriously or anything. We definitely did, but I saw the double standards that the government had set up in favor of enormous corporations, like small mom and pop stores that sold the same goods could not stay open, while Target, Walmart, stores like that could stay open, 24 hours if they wanted to. So I saw this dichotomy of, on one hand, they're saying they want to help people, but on the other hand, they're actually just helping corporations. So that sort of hypocrisy really struck a chord with me when I was living in the Bay Area. And like I said, things were just changing rapidly over the course of, 20 years, 20 plus years, I guess, living in the Bay Area. At first I saw tons of bands getting formed, tons of bands playing in San Francisco, tons of bands playing in Oakland, Berkeley. It was a great metal scene and punk scene as well in the Bay Area. It still is a good scene, but a lot of people have left over the years. I saw this big transition from a thriving underground scene to venues closing down. And I just saw recently that the Elbow Room closed down. That was my go-to venue for many years to set up gigs. I did my first Sabbath tour there in San Francisco, right on Valencia. We sold out both times we had Sabbath gigs there. I booked Abigail there. We did Destroyer 666. We had so many great memories of all these venues that eventually closed down. It's that big one in Jack London Square, the one that most festivals were happening at. You know what I'm talking about, right? Yeah, that one's also on like some sort of weird hiatus that they're semi-closed down.
The co-owner moved to Germany and didn't want to kind of co-own a business in America anymore, and so they shuttered. They reopened with new management, but they really aren't back as a metal venue right now. I know they've just started to have shows, and they're just not. Whoever's doing the booking is just not booking. And I mean, they had much more than just metal, punk. They used to do a lot of really cool dark and synthwave and electronica stuff. I saw Solar Fake and Mutant there, which is like phenomenal in that little place. I saw Author and Punisher there also. I think it was a similar show. So interestingly enough, I'm like beat today because I went to the Store Club last night to see the Decibel tour with Holder and Devil Master and Necrofire and Worm, and the place was packed out, and I was like, man, I'm not used to this. There's people right on top of me. I live around the corner from DNA Lounge, basically downtown, and the city's gone through some changes, there's no doubt, and I'm with you on like 90% of what you just said there. You're not wrong. The taxes are insane just in general in California. I mean, I thought New York had high taxes for workers, let alone businesses. So I'm with you on the skeptical eye about just kind of the management. And apparently Austin and Texas in general is very friendly to business, and seems like the right vibe for a label and a new venture, especially if you need warehouse space. Things are just more tenable, right?
Yeah. I mean, there are a lot of good things about the Bay Area and California in general, but I think it's just a very badly managed state. And especially in the Bay Area, it's just a badly managed region of California. There are better parts of California. I think San Diego is better managed. LA is kind of a shit show as well. But yeah, I mean, I love the state, but I just couldn't operate out of there. And I also had family to think about and their future. School was kind of shitty. There was a lot of drug use, a lot of violence for no reason. My kid was going to go to Highland, I think it's called Highland High School, that's where like, what's the Forrest Gump guy? That guy went there.
Is it Gary Sinise? Oh yeah.
Whatever his name is. Yeah. That actor, he went there. So it has its reputation as being a decent school in Oakland, but just recently there was a shooting, like some gang drug related thing. And, one of her best friends is Jewish, and now she's getting bullied so much because of the conflict in Israel that she had to switch schools. So, I mean, there are problems in Austin as well, but not this kind of problem. we don't have issues like this, and I don't have to worry about it. That's one of the things. Like, there's so many things that I was worrying about in Oakland. You know, my catalytic converter got stolen 4 times. My house got broken into. My warehouse got broken into. There's like this enormous disparity in income and crime level that's not managed, and all of that is just like it's just like the perfect climate for things to just flare up. And it flared up during 2020 when the riots occurred. It came within 1 mile to my house. A lot of businesses in the Montclair village that I frequented were owned by immigrants just like me. They got looted. You know, it wasn't like selective looting. It was just like random looting of businesses. And again, this is just mismanagement by the state. They just didn't crack down on the crime that was happening on that day, on that week. And they just let it happen, almost like, oh, just release the pressure valve, and the people there will just do their thing, and then we can continue to tax them to hell and tax the middle class to hell, and there aren't any consequences. So I sort of voted with my feet, so to speak. You know, I left the state because I felt like it was mismanaged so much that I couldn't contribute to the tax base that was mismanaging and just misusing the money that was taken from us. So it wasn't so much because I didn't like people there or didn't like the climate or the awesome nature or the food or whatever, you know. It was because it just wasn't tenable for me as a business owner, with the, you know, as a family man trying to like do multiple things. I was working a full-time job for a biotech company and running NWN. I did that for 23 years, you know? So I just felt like I was like a hamster in a hamster wheel, just like spinning, trying to get ahead, you know, trying to build something. But California was just slapping me in the head, just going, get down there, just do your thing and pay your taxes, and, you know, don't make a sound, just do your thing, just deal with the crime. You know, at the end of the day, that's all you can do as people at our level. You just move to where you think is going to be better. I think I chose the right place. Austin's not cheap by any means, but at least there's no state income tax and so-called fees that Oakland was always charging us for various things, like just having an LLC status for the business. You have to pay some sort of crazy tax that's like, you know, thousands of dollars per year. It was, they called it something else other than tax. It was like something LLC fee or something. And then that was like one of many fees we were paying. All of that kind of went away once we moved to Texas. You know, I got to say, the weather here fucking sucks. It's nothing like the Bay Area, you know. In the summer, it's hellishly hot. In the winter, it's cold as hell, like freezing cold. My pipes froze and broke just this past winter. So we're just now getting out of the winter season, and it's super nice out right now, but that only lasts for maybe a month or so before it goes into this hellish hot weather. So I do miss the weather and the nature of California. But, you know, to be honest, I work so much that I can deal with the shitty weather and not so interesting landscape. It's mostly flat. Where I am is kind of hilly. They call it the hill country, but, you know, it's nothing compared to the Bay Area hills. You know, I mean, I was living in Montclair, so I could just walk up the hill and there would be, you know, hiking trails and, you know, this like enormous area where it was just untouched. Here, I would have to drive pretty far to get to an actual forest of any kind. I mean, I don't think this area really has any forest to speak of. It's just, you know, it's so hot that the trees don't grow past a certain height. So, you know, it is what it is. Texas does have its beauty, but it's not so much the type that I like, you know, big trees and big mountains. It's more like open spaces with mesas and, you know, cave structures and lots of natural pools and stuff like that. So Texas has its own natural beauty, lots of wild animals as well. It's an interesting place. And Austin has a great metal scene. Not so many bands, but a lot of fans. and it leans more to the punk side of things, which is fine by me. I grew up listening to punk rock anyway, and plenty of metalheads come in from Houston and San Antonio. So there's a thriving metal and music scene in Austin. So that's really good for us. I opened up my physical store here as well. So we get a lot of people. I think in the first week after opening, I met the entire scene. I met some of my good friends that I still hang out with on the first week of opening here. So Austin's been great for us. Well, I don't even remember what your question was.
No, we're good. And just to close up this topic and move on to some other things, I've done a bunch of other interviews with a few, let's call them expat, NorCal people, who's echoed the same sentiments you had about family, security, schools, and better quality of life. So on that, I'm not a parent. I don't have any kids. I don't have a family to care for. So I fully appreciate that. For family first and foremost, and success second. Like if you can, if you're in a place that's not fostering a positive, success for your business, and especially in these perilous times, that's all good. Austin is also known for, there's a lot of stoner doom bands and a lot of psychedelic rock bands. So there's like a pocket scene there for that. There's a lot of tours that come through Austin. Right. It seems to be becoming an A city for tours instead of a B city, which is great to hear. Pivoting over, speaking of the dark times, and one of the outgrowths of that, in addition to, obviously the whole world, we still haven't really unclogged, supply times and lead times and things like that to an extent as a result of all that, but also, records, right? We're in these, the resurgence of vinyl. I never thought it would come back to this extent in my lifetime. I'm super stoked. I'm a big vinyl collector and nerd. I have a podcast about vinyl care and nerding out on vinyl stuff. And it was hard. I would talk to bands all the time, and they're like, yeah, we were trying to wait until our vinyl was ready, but then the album would never come out. So we had a couple of years where there was like staggering of releases. And I'll be honest, like in terms of a pre-order, people want to spend their money the minute something goes on sale. I'm sure you appreciate that as a record label owner. And so I think now that it's a little more normal, but also you have the impact for our scene is that these major artists are now, everybody's putting out vinyl. And so I love pointing out, I'm not mad, I'm not one of these boomers that I'm mad at Taylor Swift or Adele for pressing millions of copies of vinyl that are never going to sell. And Adele in particular, not only did she make like too many of her double vinyl, they were all like mainly manufactured badly. So like if you're going to make Target your partner and they're going to do your work with you on the pressing, make sure your quality control is in there because, but I like that you, kind of did this very democratic, thing to create a pressing plant, not just for your business and probably your bands, but everybody. Like it's a possible open thing. And I think that's really special. Why don't you talk a little bit about Helios Press?
Yeah. So Helios Press, for those of you not aware, is a vinyl pressing factory that me and my business partner are opening in Texas. It's going to be in Brady, Texas, which is like 2 hours from where I'm sitting right now, 3 hours from Austin downtown, probably, because there's going to be traffic getting out of the city. But it's basically middle of the state, kind of middle of nowhere, to be honest. We chose the location because it sits on the major highway 71 that my house also kind of resides. So it just made sense. Since real estate in Austin is so expensive, there was no way I could have afforded a warehouse in this area. So I had to look elsewhere. I looked a lot kind of between here and Houston and San Antonio. But again, with so many people moving in, all the real estate is now pretty much expensive, or at least for us, it was too expensive. So, if you're somebody like Joe Rogan, it doesn't really matter. But for us as small business owners, we just had to go as far as Brady, Texas to find something that was reasonable. So actually, we found something that was very reasonable, 7,500 square feet for $180,000. So that's almost unheard of in California. I mean, especially in the Bay Area, for a warehouse to be that cheap, like, you would have to pay at least $2 million for that size in Oakland. And you don't know if you're going to be in a bad neighborhood or not, probably East Oakland, where I was located previously, right on MacArthur Boulevard. So we're pretty far along on the process for having started only like 3 months ago, maybe 3 or 4 months at this point. But yeah, we bought the warehouse outright because we didn't want to have a loan hanging over us at the very beginning of it. We're probably going to have to take out a loan at some point, but we're waiting as long as possible and trying to bootstrap as much as possible. So the 4 vinyl presses that are getting made for us right now in Germany, it's made by a company called U-Built Machinery. They supply the same machines to Third Man Press. So if you know anything about Third Man and White Stripes, they've been kind of working in between like mainstream and kind of indie underground sort of place for a very long time now. I have a lot of respect. I don't listen to any of that kind of music myself, but I have a lot of respect for what Jack White has done for, independent artists and people like us. I press my records there as well. So they have the same machine, and from what I understand, I haven't seen them yet. They're very easy to operate, and if something goes wrong, there are less mechanical parts to fix because it's a manual machine. So manual machine means that you have to be standing in front of the machine, moving the puck of vinyl from the extruder to the press, which adds a lot of man hours, but it does cut down on the moving parts. And the moving parts in any sort of manufacturing are very prone to breaking down or just wearing out or off, being off calibration or something. So that's usually where things go wrong, any sort of moving part. So fully automatic machines have much higher throughput, and you don't need to have somebody standing there the entire time. You just calibrate it, you get it just right. If it's producing records the way you want, then it can just keep on going, and you just monitor it occasionally, and you can do other stuff in the meantime. Maybe we'll get there at some point, but initially we wanted to have a manual machine just to learn the art of making records the old school way. Manual machines also offer other flexibilities like special vinyl color combinations. You can do splatter, you can do merge colors, you can do like, these like segmented, where it's like 5 different colors in a spindle kind of thing. There are a lot of things you can do, including picture discs. So you can't do picture disc on an automatic machine. You have to do it on a manual machine. So manual machine is going to give us all these customization options. So that's why we went with it. So the machinery and the building are paid for. Part of the construction is also done. I posted some pictures on my Instagram of how far we've taken it so far. So the insulation is done. Some of the demolition is done. The roof is fixed. There was some landscaping that had to get done outside because we're pouring some concrete for where the water chiller is going to go. So the next step is a fundraiser through the NWN website or web store. So we set up like just a page within the shop where we will list pre-orders for services. So products and services set up as pre-orders, much like Kickstarter is. Kickstarter is essentially like, it's like a exaggerated long-term pre-order site. The benefit is that it has a built-in customer base and trust of people. NWN has both of these already. We have a pretty big customer base because we've been operating for 24 years, and we have the trust of our customers and fans because I've been doing it for 24 years, and we don't fuck over customers on purpose. Sometimes orders will get delayed because we're busy or something, but we do our best to keep customers happy. So for the most part, 99% of our customers really like us. So, I thought to myself, why give 10% to a corporation like Kickstarter? So we opted to not use Kickstarter and just stick it into our shop as a separate page. So March 1st is the start of this campaign. We'll run it for at least 2 months, but probably longer. 2 months for at least the pre-orders for the records. We're doing 5 exclusive records. They're all going to have silkscreen sheet metal covers, stainless steel. So it's not going to be like a jacket made out of metal. That's much harder to pull off. It's just a sheet, like a square sheet, silk screen on one side, hand numbered and named on the other side. So let's say that Ghost Cult, buys one of these copies. I would, hand number it and then write Ghost Cult on the back. So it'll be, personalized for you. And your name would also get added to the thanks list. So every copy of these records will have a thanks list of all the contributors that contributed to the fundraising campaign. And, that means that your name will just live in infamy forever with that record. And you'll have a hard time selling that record because it has your name on it.
Well, I think most real collectors don't. We don't support the flippers on my vinyl podcast or in general. I understand that sometimes you have 2 of something, and maybe I want to flip it. It's worth a lot of money, but like most of the people who collect are saver. It's for themselves. I play my records. I don't first of all, it's bad to not open them out of the shrink wrap. I open my records. I play my records. I hug my records. I enjoy my records. Like I did when I was a kid. And I love you unpacking all that stuff. I was going to ask, because it's such an involved process. Did you have to, I'm not aware, so hopefully you can help educate me and our followers here. Obviously someone's going to have to manage the warehouse, manage the presses, right, workers to work the presses all the time, however many days a week. And so that's a whole involved process. I love that you said throughput, which also triggers my happy memories of business management school before I became a marketer in my other life. And that's the process of factory work and, the order of operations of how things are made, how things are actually made, not just the TV series of fun things. But vinyl's a fascinating process. I love hearing all that customization ability with the manual presses. But obviously, did you have to find partners and hire staff once the building is ready to go who know how to work the presses already? Yeah,
so nobody knows how to operate the presses within my circle. But the good thing is that much like the metal scene and underground punk scene, the vinyl pressing scene, because there are only a handful, 10 or something, or 10 to 15 in the US, and maybe about the same in Europe or something. Everyone knows each other. They go to the same, making records conferences. They all talk to each other and they help each other. It's more of a community rather than a group of competitors talking to each other. You don't get that vibe that they're trying to sabotage each other. In fact, I've reached out to some of these factories and they were like, oh yeah, let's get on a call and I'll tell you everything. They were never like, these are trade secrets. We can't tell you certain things because we've perfected it and we don't want you to succeed. It was always, I want you to succeed because this is such a good community and we can help each other. There are plenty of customers. There's not this, obviously every industry has competition for customers, right? We're trying to always gain customers and keep them. But I think in this industry, at least, there are enough customers, there's enough demand. So the supply side is a little bit more limited in terms of the number of factories out there. It seems like everyone trusts each other at this point. I don't think it's going to be such an issue. I'm hiring a consultant at the beginning to help us learn how to use the machines. I have a friend named Chris Donaldson. He's opening up a factory in North Carolina pretty soon. He has the same exact machine that we're getting. So at some point, maybe this summer, I'll fly out there with my business partner and Chris will teach us how to use the machines even before we get the machines. So our machines are coming in May, but the infrastructure won't be ready. So we'll probably have to sit on it until the rest of the infrastructure is ready. And then we're hoping to open up by late 2024. So that's the plan. In terms of staffing and, employment, that's definitely something we want to do locally, just because I'm a firm believer in just supporting the local economy and U.S. economy, Texas economy. Wherever you reside, I think is where you need to be really helping the local economy, because I really don't like this idea of outsourcing. I've done it. plenty of times in my corporate life, when I was managing the call centers in India, I had to go over there 10 times. When I was just starting out in my career in biotech, we had a team of scientists, undergrads mostly, but still scientists, working in tech support. They're all residing locally. And then we got acquired by a bigger company, and they said, "Oh, look at these numbers. You guys are getting paid too much. It's time to just get rid of all of you." So one day, the entire tech support team got canned, and luckily, my manager was half Japanese, so we used to just talk a lot, and so she favored me. So she kept me as the manager of the team, of the outsourced team. So I ended up staying in that position for 20 something years. So 23 years or so, I was in the same position of just managing a tech support team that was doing something a lot more technical than I was able to do. These guys are super smart. Nothing against the people on the other side of the outsourcing. I mean, they're just trying to work. I do feel that the local economy should be prioritized before you think about the economy in India. India should worry about their own economy. I mean, that's why we have countries and sovereignty. I think it's important to support locally first. Anyway, that's my long-winded way of saying that I would hire locally, and and we're going to look for younger people who are more creative. So we might reach out to local high schools in the area. It's not a big city, so they probably only have like 1 or 2 high schools in that entire region. Almost like a career there. I'll go over there and present my case and say, "Look, do you want to be in a music industry? You'll get to talk to musicians, record labels. If you're a creative person, then you can, play around with vinyl colors. It's manual labor and it's repetitive, but it should be much more fun than flipping burgers at Wendy's or whatever." So I think I can make the job attractive to younger people. And of course, I'm not ageist or anything. I have nothing against people with more experiences doing blue collar factory work. So our goal is to staff maybe 10 to 15 people within Brady, Texas. Me and my business partner will, again, bootstrap at the beginning and just press our own records and get the operation going. We have to actually learn the art of pressing records, because it really is. It's not so much a science. It's not like you just measure the temperature in the room and you measure the moisture level. There are a lot of calibration that needs to happen at the beginning of the pressing cycle every single day, every single time, because once you switch things out, it goes out of calibration. So you have to recalibrate it. So you have to set the press time. There's a cycle of melting the PVC and hardening the PVC. That's why the boiler and the chiller are necessary. So it's pumping hot steam and cold water into the machinery. So all of these things are very finicky. And depending on the color of the vinyl or where the vinyl pellets come from, you could have issues with, needing more temperature or needing less temperature, or, adjusting the cooling cycle or whatever. There are a lot of finicky things you have to adjust. There's an art to this thing. And unless you know records very well, you can't gauge the quality of the records that come out. So there's a lot to learn and also a lot to train when we hire. But yeah, just to summarize, we will hire, and we will hire locally.
Amazing. I think it's safe to say you're going to perfect all these processes first with your own records or test presses before you start opening it up to sales of other people. We absolutely need more vinyl pressing plants to open in America, because it's just a challenge. Even the major metal record labels are getting a lot of their stuff from overseas, which is fine. It just leads to higher shipping costs. That cost is baked into a pre-order. It's baked into a sale of a vinyl. So sometimes folks, when your new vinyl of a double LP is, anywhere from, $34 to $48, some of that that is the shipping cost, and would be lower, theoretically lower. Wouldn't have to pass that expense on to the fan if it's sourced locally, pressed locally, done with American labor in America. But it's so good for us if the opportunity comes up in 2025. Once you have all you feel confident and ready to sell pressing time to other labels or independent bands. We need that desperately. I even think of like one of the more infamous cases of the last couple of years, and more power to Metallica. They bought one of the biggest pressing plants in the country and just took it. And they do sell their time to other labels and other bands and things. But like when the biggest band ever takes over a major industry and literally comes in and takes away a huge resource that was independent forever in its existence, it's tough. I'm happy for them. They're selling a lot of vinyl, and they have their own thing with a new album out last year. But like it hurts. It hurts the rest of the little guys. And I mean, like, I don't expect them to apologize for it. They're Metallica. But let's just pivot for a little second as we wind this down. You've been amazing. Thank you for all this stuff you've been unpacking for us. I do want to talk about the label, because I always feel like you had one of the more interesting labels. Obviously some super well respected bands, Dead Congregation, Eris Kingdom, so many cool bands. But at the same time, being a label owner, and without having to get overly political, I know you've been, we just had a whole conversation at the top here about being anti-corporate, and I think you used to sell a very like pro-vegan, pro-animal life t-shirt at one point in your shop, which I think is probably a cause or something you might be interested in. But at the same time, labels can also be lightning rods for controversy with their tough bands. Some of their bands, can be challenging. Do you feel like there's ever been kind of a bias against your label or against some of your bands because they are maybe, not to everybody's taste politically, or against the grain, or in some cases offensive? Is that a problem for you?
So let me preface by saying that I am not a political person. I have political views, but I do not mix them with my record label or business. That's not my goal with NWN. That being said, I don't really care what the politics of the band that I work with are. They could be left-wing, like Agathocles. They could be more right-leaning, like Black Witchery. I don't really judge them on their politics. I'm a music fan. I'm a art appreciator. I don't know if that's a bad way to phrase it, but you know what I mean. I view the art as art. I do not view the art as some sort of a tangent from the person that's creating the art. So I think in order to appreciate any sort of music at this point, you have to separate the artist from the art, right? Because otherwise, how can you listen to Motorhead, for example? Motorhead has a song called Jailbait, which is basically about pedophilia, basically, going after underage girls at concerts and fucking them. That's the level of degeneracy that we have to deal with. I got a 15-year-old daughter. I bet, the song is basically about girls her age. So Cannibal Corpse she was asking for it. That's about rape and murder.
Right.
Basically like a snuff film. Slayer has Satanic Wehrmacht, and the list goes on. The whole point of me saying this is that I love all of these bands that I just mentioned, and I judge them on their creative output and their art, not on their so-called politics. Like if I had to get politics from my bands, Jesus Christ, Cannibal Corpse, Motorhead, and all these bands created their best albums and recordings when they were in their teenage years or early 20s. I'm 48 years old. If I had to take my political opinions from people 20 and younger, then I would just go crazy. I'm not that stupid. I just think that a lot of people sell themselves short by pretending like metal musicians actually represents some sort of power that they're wielding. It doesn't make any sense. Most of these kids are powerless, and they're just trying to offend you with either gore, or it could be, Satanism, or it could even be right-wing politics or something, or extreme left-wing politics. It swings in both directions. Like when I made the animal liberation, human extermination, patches, that was loved by the left and the right as well, but that was more like left-leaning propaganda, or like just offensive, nihilistic type of, merchandise that I made. but I guess that's my long-winded way of saying that people who take themselves too seriously are losers, basically. They're beta males usually. They're chomping at the heels of people doing stuff that's actually interesting. And they cannot understand art for art's sake. They're not listening to music the way that it should be listened to. So I guess I don't know, maybe that comment will get me in trouble with some people, but that's just how I view the world, I guess. I never really understood why they would come after me for associating with another person or releasing a record with somebody that holds values that I don't hold. If somebody doesn't hold those values, they should just not buy it. There are always options. I don't like this silencing and cancellation of stuff because you don't agree with it. I mean, it goes both ways, right? Like, what if the right wing takes a hold of these companies and they start canceling bands like Agathocles or, Discharge or whatever, So history has proven that politics can swing in either direction in an extreme way. I think we need to live in a liberal society where we tolerate views and free speech at any cost. And I guess that's the hill that I'll die on.
Yo, fair enough. And I asked the question. I would say personally, and I think with Ghost Cult, the way we run our thing is I can't separate the art from the artist, but I feel like I have an ethical responsibility not to as a journalist. But that's my journey. And my beliefs, unlike everybody else on the internet, my beliefs don't demand you agree with me, and I'm okay with people having different sets of opinions. And I would say, like, it's obvious you wouldn't work with anybody that's personally a terrible person, and you just see things from a lens of art and music and this community. Not like I work with horrible people who are the things they sing about. I think that's not there is a level where people are not the stories they tell. Most death metal is like cartoonish horror movie violence against women, and you couldn't find a better dad and husband than George Fisher, right? Who sings about, horrible things. So I'm with you in that for the most part. So awesome. Thank you for the honest answer. I asked the question. Mm-hmm. Speaking of Slayer, let's end on a fun thing. How do you feel about the unretirement of Slayer? I'm personally shocked.
Well, I like Slayer live, so I don't really see that as a problem to me. I hope they don't record anything though. The Kerry King album is just horrible. So
I've only heard the first song. I don't think I haven't been privy to any of it yet, but I think it sounds like I expected it to sound like Repentless, more of that, which I didn't hate, but wouldn't put it amongst the best things they ever did as a band. Mm-hmm. I think if I had Gary Holt at my disposal, the guy who has written some of the best riffs of all time, I'd have him write with me and use him a little more. But I think it's probably going to be, festival headlining spots and things like that. I'm sure the money is astronomically big. I just found it like astounding that like a week ago, Kerry, as we were recording this, Kerry was like, I've never talked to that guy again, and I hate this guy and I hate that guy, and now they're bringing back the last version of the band again to do these couple of shows. So we'll see if there's more. It's good for metal, because I always feel like, the big commercial bands, somebody today that discovers a Slayer or Metallica, they will find somebody Dead Congregation like in 3 months, So I'm always a believer of that there's the only time a trickle down theory works is in art.
Mm-hmm. Well, can I say some closing comments?
Please do.
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you very much for this interview. It's been very interesting, and I don't mind opposing views as long as we can talk them out, so really appreciate your, honesty and openness. And I guess I should do some shout outs to a lot of my friends in the Bay Area. So I guess we'll start out with Jason Campbell from Berkeley, one of my oldest friends, Brandon and Marco from Novato, John Gossard from Asunder Weakling, Todd from Dispirit. Who else has left? So many people have left. Jack Shirley, with whom I share a warehouse with still. It's just my half is rented out right now. Let's see. Scotty from Tank Crime, Mark Viadigi from Tank Crime House and Graphic Design House. Yeah, I guess that might be it. A lot of people have moved out. It's too bad, but yeah.
Scotty fled for the hills. Also, we just interviewed him. I love Scotty Heath, wonderful guy, just like you, doing a lot for underground music with a real DIY spirit. And I really got to say thank you on behalf of music fans and vinyl collectors and enthusiasts. Thank you so much for opening this press. And this is a huge undertaking. You cannot underestimate how important it is right now for America to open vinyl pressing plants, for underground bands and labels to continue to exist and compete and put out product. It's really hugely important. And so I really want to say honestly and truly, thank you so much, man. And thank you for hanging out with Ghost Cult today.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, everyone. And thank you.